Hello friends. Welcome to Recaps Now. Today, I'm going to explain a movie called Monolith. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The movie starts with an advertisement for an innovative brand of car named Monolith. The man in the commercial states that the car has been recognized as the most secured car in the world. The man also states that the car is highly innovative and has many features such as impenetrable glass, powerful tires, a tough body, and several other characteristics that protect the rider from any sort of harm. The car has an AI-connected smartphone app with it that helps control the various features when somebody is inside the car. A virtual assistant Lilith helps in communication with the user interface of the car. Next, we see a mother with her small kid inside an AI-based car. They were traveling to the child's grandma's house. While she is talking to Lilith, we learn that the mother's name is Sandra, while the child is called David and is 2 years old. Her husband, Carl, is a pilot who was not able to accompany them due to his professional commitments. The car is so updated that it can even detect the weight of the passengers inside it. Next, Carl calls up Sandra and tells her that he was at the central airport after his duty hours and that he missed them a lot. Meanwhile, somebody knocks on the door and Carl hangs up the call and leaves. On the other hand, David starts to act naughty. So Sandra gives him her phone to keep him busy. After a while, Sandra stops at a gas station beside the road. Here she takes David inside the washroom and changes his diapers while some girls are seen laughing. The gas station has a super shop where Sandra takes David and buys his favorite snacks. When she was paying at the counter, Sandra observes that someone was trying to break into her car. She, however, does not panic and takes out her phone and uses the smart app to lock the car. As Sandra is engrossed in observing the situation, she does not notice that David is not with her. After she realizes that David is lost, she shouts and screams and searches for David throughout the market. A worried Sandra rushes outside and calls out a stranger thinking that David was with him. She seemed extremely puzzled until she finds David with 3 ladies who she had met in the washroom before. Sandra then puts David instantly inside the car and turns on the vault mode. This action separates her from whatever was happening outside and she felt relaxed. Next, they leave the gas station and Sandra has a long drive ahead of her before she could reach her mother-in-law's house. Sandra felt bored and tired due to the long drive, so she calls up her childhood friend Jessa to ask where she was. Jessa picks up the call and answers that she was close to the central airport at a hotel. She informs Sandra that she was staying at the hotel with Carl. Sandra is extremely upset to learn that her husband was cheating on her with her friend. She was so frustrated that she does not even think of entering her mother-in-law's house upon reaching there. Sandra continues to call Carl, who does not answer her calls and acts to be busy. Here we see a frustrated and angry Sandra decides to take things into her own hands and starts her journey to Los Angeles to find Carl at the central airport. On her way, a board shows that Los Angeles was still 320 miles away. After some time, the AI assistant Lilith informs an accident had occurred on the highway, which will delay her journey. She suggests Sandra takes the bypass route, which will be more convenient. However, Lilith the AI also says that the route was a lonely one and hardly any passengers would take it. Sandra, who is stubborn in confronting Carl, takes up the alternate route without a second thought. Sometime later, dusk sets in and Sandra was facing difficulty in driving the car. The fog also increases a lot, and this also affected her vision of the road. While on her journey, she finds no trace of any human habitat or any other transport. However, she notices an electrical power station out of nowhere. She has a look at it and drives away. The place was so isolated that it only had wild and hostile animals. All of a sudden, we see that a nervous Sandra crashes into a deer and David starts to cry due to the collision. Here, Sandra again hands David her phone to pacify him. Next, she comes out of the car and checks on the animal, but it seemed to have almost died and is stuck under the front of the car, due to which Sandra was not able to drive off the car. Sandra then tries to assess the situation, and in all this, she forgot that David was inside the car. On the other hand, David mistakenly opens the AI app while playing and moves his fingers around the app and activates the vault feature without Sandra noticing it. This feature disconnected the passenger from the outside world. Sandra understands the situation and gives it her all to break open the door. But it was too late now, as Sandra was stranded and locked outside the car. She tries to draw David's attention, but he was too small and busy to understand what her mother was trying to say. Later, a frustrated Sandra starts shouting at the poor kid, which takes him back, and he drops the phone under the seat. Sandra now understands that Monolith's features were for real and not just an advertisement. We then see Sandra trying to break the glass with a piece of rock, but nothing happens. Even a single mark or scratch is seen on the window. When nothing seemed to work, Sandra looks for alternate methods. She starts walking towards the electrical power station, which she had seen before. After a while of walking, she had reached the station, climbs over the fence, and shouts out for help. But she does not get any response from anybody. Next, Sandra goes to one of the rooms and discovers some necessary items inside. She takes a torch for use at night and a big wrench to break the glass of the car. When she was leaving the power station, she observes a wild animal was coming after her. As Sandra came running back, she is attacked by a coyote and she climbs onto the roof of the car. Even after all her efforts to make it go away, the animal would not move an inch. As a last resort, Sandra begins to hit the car forcefully with the wrench, and an alarm rings, which results in the animal leaving from there. In the meantime, Sandra observes that David was having breathing problems. Despite the situation, Sandra manages to calm David, and he finally regains normalcy in breathing and soon falls asleep. After a bit of thought, we see tired Sandra falls asleep on the bonnet of the car. The next morning, Sandra wakes up to bright sunshine. At first, she rushes to the car and checks on David, and finds him to be in a feeble condition because of hunger and dehydration. One of the car's characteristics showed the temperature, and it was slowly on the rise. Sandra felt cursed by the situation, as she was in an isolated place with no human trace. Sandra then decides to take help from somewhere and starts walking. Though she was dehydrated, she ventures to walk the long path. She also knew the risks and hazards of leaving a tiny David alone in the car, which was now overheated. But this was her only option. Thankfully, she sees a river while on her journey, from where she gets hydrated and cleans herself. After feeling a bit relaxed, she resumes her journey and sees a few steep hills in her journey. After a long walk, Sandra comes to an airfield where there is a jet. By this time, the temperature inside the monolith also begins to rise, and the cooling fans are automatically turned on. After reaching the foregone plane, Sandra goes inside and sees some alcoholic beverages. She also notices a gallon of gasoline, a lighter, and a pair of spare airplane tires. She drinks some alcohol and collects the necessary items. She then uses the gasoline to light the tires to get help. Next, she takes the gallon and fills it up with water from the river. Slowly, Sandra walks to the place where David was. Next, we see that she scampers to the car and sees that David was turning red. Sandra calls David, but he neither moved nor did he answer Sandra. The temperature in the car had increased a lot, and the cooling fans were not working. Seeing her son in such miserable conditions, Sandra goes up to the roof of the car and pours the river water. But all her efforts were fruitless, and she thought that she would lose her dear child inside the innovative car. She again tries to bang the windows of the car with a wrench, but nothing happens. Later, Sandra lights up a fire outside the car and hopes that the smoke would be detected by the sensor and open up the window, but she is left disheartened as nothing of this sort happens. Contrary to her expectation, the emergency cooling fans also cease to work. Sandra runs to stop the smoke from entering inside. A tired Sandra then falls to the ground, and she has a vision of her and Carl visiting the scene of the accident after a year. Here we see that Sandra understands her mistake, but still blames Carl for the death of David. After a while, she wakes up due to noise and finds that it was her dream. Besides this, the coyote of the previous night was also there. Sandra decides to run away from it and climbs up the car's roof. But as the car was overheated, so she is not able to stay there and falls down. The coyote then bites and injures her. After this, Sandra understands that the coyote was looking for the deer. As soon as the deer is moved out by the coyote, the car begins to move backward. Sandra gets out and tries to stop the car from a slide. But in spite of all her efforts, the car continues in motion until it is stopped by a rock. As Sandra looks down the cliff, she remembers the cartoon she saw in the gas station from where a diamond was collected after the vault was broken. Sandra thinks of pushing the car downwards in order to open its doors. Sandra knew that her plan was risky, but this was her best option, thus she goes ahead. She gets hold of the wrench and starts breaking the rock which was resisting the tire. Sandra removes the rock and intentionally pushes the car downwards. As David was still inside and the car is thrown upwards, the car's AI features come into play and shifts its balance by assessing the gravitational force and pressure. The car falls in a straight line and ensures that David was safe. The car was designed in a way that deactivates the vault mode whenever an accident occurred to let the rescuers save the passengers and the doors opened up. When the car hits the ground, Sandra climbs down the cliff and goes near the car. The car was designed in such a way that even after such a fall it seemed that it was perfectly alright and placed. Sandra finds the door was now open and takes out David quickly and undresses him to help him cool. Seeing David in such a weak and miserable condition, she plans to get out of the place as soon as possible. We see that before Sandra boards the car, it gets restarted automatically. Sandra then uses Lilith's help to switch on the extreme off-road mode and climbs the cliff ahead of her. We see that the car was adapted for extreme conditions and easily crosses the steep cliff. Astonishingly, Sandra gets to the off-road safely and goes towards the hospital. In the last scene, we see Sandra and David reach the hospital. David is placed beside Sandra, and he has multiple tubes attached to him. Sandra is seen worried for her son until David opens his eyes and addresses her as Mommy for the very first time. The movie ends by showing a delighted Sandra who was overjoyed to hear her son call her out as Mommy.